She saved an alien child, and became a queen's voice. In a galaxy torn by war, one human didn't fire a weapon. She spoke. When she rescued an alien child from a battlefield, she didn't know she was stepping into a royal bloodline, or into the heart of a queen's empire. This is not a story about victory. It's about connection. About the fragile language between enemies, and the bond between a translator and the unknown. If you're drawn to love that crosses stars, to empathy that rewrites destiny, stay with me. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with what moved you most. Your words help this little corner of the galaxy grow brighter. Now let's begin. The ice moon of Relis groaned beneath Ilya Marin's boots, its crust fracturing like cracked glass, as the latest shockwave rumbled through the valley. The sky above was a kaleidoscope of fire. Ashen clouds glowing orange, as debris from the orbital battle fell in slow arcs. Tiny shooting stars, of failure. Her breath fogged the inside of her visor. The translation implant in her neck buzzed, stuttering through the static of nearby comms. All units, fall back to extraction point Theta 7. I repeat, Theta 7. Evac in T-12. 12 minutes. Plenty of time to screw something up. Ilya crouched beside the wreckage of the alien transport. Blackened metal folded in on itself, like origami set ablaze. This wasn't part of her assignment. She was supposed to stay behind the lines, monitoring radio signals, maintaining language data packets. She translated things, not rescued them. But something had crackled on a private frequency a few minutes ago. Not words. A child's cry, warped and shivering through static. She couldn't ignore that. She pressed gloved hands to the fuselage, pried loose a shard of ice-caked hull. Her exosuit whined in protest, as she wedged herself through a jagged gap. The world dimmed inside, soot and frost choking the air. Then movement. A glow blinked to life in the shadows. A small figure, tucked behind a half-melted console. She was curled around something, a silver orb, cracked and leaking threads of blue light. Her body trembled, mauve-skinned and shimmering faintly beneath grime and blood. Long, fin-like ears twitched. And her eyes, like molten amber, huge and staring. The girl didn't move, didn't breathe, until Ilya took one careful step forward. Then, the child hissed. Fierce. Furious. A sound too big for her lungs. Whoa, Ilya said softly, her translation implant catching up. I'm not going to hurt you. The girl lifted the orb. You will not touch me, ground crawler. The words were clear, but oddly formal. Court dialect, Ilya realized. You are in the presence of. She winced. Coughed. Saren Kale of the Arisari Dominion. Daughter of the Crown Flame. Heir to the voice. Ilya blinked. Royalty. Great. The translator orb buzzed again, trying to rephrase her title as something closer to princess, probably? The girl narrowed her eyes. You wear a human face. Why should I trust you? Because I walked through a snowstorm full of shrapnel just to check on a noise, Ilya replied, carefully sliding off her helmet. Her cheeks flushed from the cold. Hair plastered to her forehead. Because I heard someone cry. And I couldn't leave it alone. That's all. Saren squinted. You are strange. Ilya smiled, a little sad. That's fair. Another tremor rolled through the wreckage. Distant, but growing closer. The shuttle's shell groaned again. Ice dust drifted from the ceiling like frozen sand. "We have to go," Ilya said. "This place isn't going to hold." Saren looked down at her orb. Then back at Ilya. Her voice dropped, quieter now. "My mother will come for me. She will bring the void ships. Your people will burn." "I'm not here as a soldier," Ilya said. "I'm a translator. My job is to understand. Right now, I understand that you're scared. And that you need help." Silence. Saren didn't speak again. She didn't hiss. Didn't argue. She simply stood up, wobbly, regal despite the soot on her cheeks. Walked to Ilya with a limp. Then, without a word, she pressed the cracked orb into Ilya's hands. It thrummed weakly. "What's your name, strange human?" she asked. "Ilya," she said. "Ilya Marin." Saren nodded once. "Then you are my Kavari now?" The translation implant hesitated. Flickered. Then failed to render the word. By the time they reached the evac point, the dropship engines were already firing up. Ilya stumbled aboard with Saren in her arms. Coughing. Frostbitten. The soldiers stared. One muttered. "What the hell is that?" "Royal baggage," Ilya wheezed. "Try not to poke it." Saren hissed on cue. Baring tiny alien teeth. In the roar of ascent, as the stars clawed their way back into view, Ilya let her head rest back against the cold hull. And for a moment, a flicker. Saren reached for her hand. The Arisari capital hung suspended above the gas giant Virellas, like a drifting jewel. Its spires curved into impossible arches, each one threaded with light and floating stone. From space, it looked serene. Unreachable. Holy. But as the dropship docked and hissed open, the piece shattered, under a wall of silence so sharp, it almost had teeth. Ilya stepped out, and immediately felt watched. Not by eyes alone. By something deeper. Like the air itself had memory. Like the floor remembered footsteps, and judged the weight of your intentions. Dozens of Arisari guards stood waiting. Their armor shimmered between silver and amethyst, shaped like folded wings. Helmets masked their faces entirely, but Ilya felt their stares like a spotlight pressed to her skin. The one in front sniffed. Actually sniffed. Then said, in low Arisari dialect, "She smells of steel, and uncertainty?" "Yeah," Ilya muttered under her breath. "It's the shampoo." Saren was silent beside her, holding her translator orb like a relic. Her injuries had been treated. Her delicate limbs were bound in gossamer wraps. She still limped. But her eyes blazed with defiance. "You will not touch her," Saren warned the guards. Her voice small, but cutting. "She is Kavari. Chosen." A pause followed. Then, slowly, the guards bowed their heads. Not to Ilya, but to Saren. Not in warmth. In ritual. One gestured. "The Queen awaits." They moved through corridors that ignored gravity, bending like slow rivers. Columns hovered midair, whispering echoes of forgotten music. The walls were liquid light, shifting with the mood of those nearby. No one spoke to her. Not even Saren. The girl kept her distance now. Walking with her back straight and chin up. Already returning to the royal mask she had shed in the wreck. Ilya suddenly missed the soot-smudged child, who had clutched her arm in the snow. The throne room wasn't a room at all. It was a platform, floating above a sea of starlight, or something that looked like it. The floor was transparent, but stable. The light beneath shimmered with ancient constellations, like memory etched into space. And in the center, poised like a weapon sheathed in silk, stood Queen Kalara. Her ears were long, adorned with gold wire and crystal droplets that hovered instead of dangling. Her skin, the color of pale starlight. Her robes, rippling like mercury. She was beautiful, in the same way deep space was. Cold. Vast. And unknowable. Ilya bowed, because her knees gave out. Not because she remembered protocol. Kalara didn't move. You are the human who carried my child, through fire and ruin, she said. Her voice vibrated. Not just sound, but sensation. Ilya's chest hummed with the words, as if her bones were instruments. Yes, Ilya said. I also gave her my emergency ration, and let her insult my ancestry for an hour. Kalara's eyes narrowed. You jest? A little, Ilya replied. It's how I process, not dying. The queen stepped closer. Too close. Her pupils were slits, but they widened slightly as she studied Ilya. You did not flee. You did not kill. You did not claim ransom. Should I have? You intrigued me? Kalara turned slightly. The folds of her robe catching pinpricks of starlight. The war fractures. We stand at the mouth of either extinction, or unification. And into that choice steps, you. Ilya blinked. Me. Kalara nodded once. Saren has named you Kavari. That is not ceremonial. It is, binding. Right. Still not entirely sure what that means. It means, Kalara said softly. You are now our voice between worlds. The declaration echoed, like a stone tossed into silence. Ilya didn't respond right away. Her mouth opened. But nothing useful emerged. Her thoughts had taken one look at the situation, and bolted into hiding. A translator. Not just for language, but for intent, diplomacy, culture. The bridge between Orissary and human peace talks. She had just been a junior linguist 2 weeks ago. Now she was being offered a throne, made of glass and explosives. Finally, she managed. Isn't there a test for this? An application form. Your survival was the test, Kalara said. Your compassion was the form. Ilya let out a breath. And if I say no? Kalara's expression remained unreadable. Then you are free to leave. But you will do so, knowing the child you saved called you Kavari. And we will not explain the meaning again. The pressure of that word settled on her shoulders, like a living weight. Saren finally stepped forward. Her voice was quiet, but clear. I trust her. 3 words. That was all it took. Ilya's resistance crumbled, like frost in sunlight. She looked from the child to the queen, and finally nodded. Then I'll stay. For Saren. For peace. For, whatever this is. Kalara inclined her head. The faintest ghost of approval crossed her features. A translator, she murmured. Let us see if you can also translate the future. The days that followed blurred into soft tension. Not peace. Not yet. But a kind of silence before something either bloomed, or broke. Ilya Marin woke each morning inside a suite far too beautiful for her fractured sleep. Walls made of living glass filtered her dreams through lavender light. Air that hummed faintly with the scent of minerals and rain. The palace was alien in the way loneliness is, vast, echoing, waiting for meaning. And everywhere she went, they watched her. Servants with slit pupil eyes. Guards in armor that shimmered like dragonfly wings. Even the walls seemed to pulse in time with her breath. She didn't belong. But she was trying. Each day, she met with a linguistic elder, a creature with 6 limbs and a voice like layered bells. They taught her the nuances of orrery speech. How every word carried emotional coding. How a greeting meant something different if spoken with a scent of fear, or love, or grief. Language, here, was not just sound, it was intention, memory, truth. And still, she couldn't stop thinking about Saren. The girl appeared in odd places. Peeking into the training halls. Appearing silently beside Ilya during meals. Offering strange, half-smiling critiques like, "You hold the cup wrong. It looks like you're threatening it." They didn't talk much. But when they did, it was never small. One night, Saren sat beside her on a balcony. Stars stretching endlessly above the gas giant's shimmer. "I miss the snow," the child said quietly. It was sharp, but honest. Ilya nodded. "I miss music. Not the kind that hums through walls. The kind that gets stuck in your head. The kind that makes you dance badly." Saren tilted her head. "Humans dance badly on purpose. Sometimes. It's how we rebel against the universe." The girl smiled, just a little, and leaned against Ilya's arm. The next day, things changed. A rebel transmission pierced the palace comms. Hijacked. Raw. Static-laced. A human face appeared on every open panel, scarred, furious, familiar. "Ilya Marin. If you're seeing this, then they've pulled you in. They are not offering peace. They are offering control. We know what the orrery queen wants. You're not her guest. You're her pawn. Don't play their game. Help us strike. We're ready. We need someone inside." Silence fell. Then, suspicion. Queen Kavari summoned her within the hour. No crown. No guards. Just that same terrible stillness. "You will explain this," the queen said. Ilya stood in the middle of a starlit chamber, heart pounding. "I didn't know they would do that. That man, he used to be my supervisor. He yelled at me for mislabeling food rations. We weren't exactly close." Kavari's voice was colder than vacuum. "Yet he knew your location." Ilya swallowed. "Lucky guess." Kavari didn't blink. "You stand between 2 empires. Both preparing to bleed." Ilya's hands trembled. "I just want to help. I didn't ask to be anyone's bridge. I'm just trying to keep the child you love from becoming a casualty. Isn't that enough?" The queen studied her. And for the first time, hesitated. Then, "You will undergo resonance recall. We will read your memories. Search your truth. Decide if you are still worthy." The chamber was called the Mind Weft. A sphere of light and silence. No sound. No escape. The walls responded to thought. Projected memory like film, except it burned. Ilya saw herself again. Running through snow. Saren in her arms. The hiss of the wreck. The softness of that little hand clutching hers. "We don't leave kids behind," her past self whispered. "I don't care what species they are." Then another memory. A meeting. Tense. Before deployment. Her old commander's voice. "The orrery will offer peace. You smile. Accept. Then detonate from within." Ilya gasped. That voice, she'd buried it. Forgotten it. Or, chosen to forget. Then it was over. The sphere dissolved into air. Kalara stood outside, her expression unreadable. Well? Ilya asked. Her voice rough. Did I pass your sci-fi polygraph? Kalara didn't answer immediately. You are conflicted, she finally said. You seek peace, but you fear betrayal. You have lived in war for so long, you mistake survival for strategy. Ilya gave a hollow laugh. That sounds like a fortune cookie. I got one like that once. Except the cookie tried to bite me. A pause. Then, the queen said. You speak truth. Your intentions, however muddled, are not treacherous. And just as the tension began to fade, the palace alarms screamed. Unscheduled breach. Hangar Bay Theta. Multiple life signs. Armed. Kalara's eyes narrowed. The rebellion? Ilya blinked. Wait, now? Here. Saren appeared beside her, handing over a sleek sidearm. Welcome to the Empire, she said. Hope you brought ammo. The hangar bay exploded in a storm of color and noise. Ilya ducked behind a crate marked with glowing Arisari glyphs. It was either explosive ordnance, or alien fruit. She didn't have time to check. Above her, the air rippled with plasma trails. Rebel ships had pierced the shielding like needles through silk. Sleek, black vessels hissed open. And human operatives spilled out, shouting commands, weapons drawn. The floor shook with impact. The war had come. And she was in the middle of it. Kalara moved like a force of nature. Not a queen now. A storm wrapped in silver. She barked orders in a language that felt like metal folding in on itself. She raised her scepter, and turned it into a weapon. 3 rebels down, before they even aimed. Beside Ilya, Saren handed her a plasma pistol. Too large for her hands. Too calm for her age. You said they wouldn't come, the girl said. Voice trembling between awe and betrayal. I said they shouldn't come, Ilya replied. Big difference. You humans, Saren muttered, are very good at being wrong. They moved together, from cover to cover. Firing only when necessary. Ilya was careful not to hit anyone she recognized. Which wasn't easy. Some of those rebels had once shared her rations. Laughed in her tent. Taught her Arisari curse words. Now they wore scratched visors and insurgent emblems. They didn't even look back. Then, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. Marin. Commander Halden. Her former superior. Scarred. Wild-eyed. Standing in the smoke, weapon raised. You're coming with us, he shouted. We've got a clean window. 10 minutes before lockdown. Ilya didn't move. She looked at Saren. Then at Kalara, now fighting off 2 rebels at once, cloak aflame. I can't, she said quietly. Halden narrowed his eyes. They've brainwashed you? No, Ilya said, stepping into the light. But they did run a memory scan. Kind of like therapy. But with more lasers. This isn't the same mission anymore. Halden growled. What are you talking about? I'm talking about an end. A real one. Not peace written in ash, but something that might last. She wants it. You believe her? Ilya nodded. I believe her, kid. And I believe. I've seen enough blood to last 3 lifetimes. For a heartbeat, Halden said nothing. Then, he raised his blaster. Sorry, Sergeant. Can't risk it. A post bolt snapped through the air and knocked the weapon clean from his hands. Kalara stood behind him, scepter hissing. That, she said coldly, was not a request. The fight ended soon after. The rebels were surrounded, outgunned, not executed, detained, with a surprising amount of dignity. Ilya insisted on it. Kalara allowed it. For now. 2 weeks later. The palace didn't feel like the same place. Gone were the silent marble halls. In their place, banners of unity. Human and Arisari. Side by side. New councils formed. Rebel prisoners released. Not a fairy tale ending. But not a war zone either. By galactic standards. A miracle. Ilya stood on a high balcony, sipping a fizzy green drink. It tasted like guilt and lime. Ships launched in slow arcs across the sky. Saren appeared beside her, dressed in hand-painted royal armor. One shoulder bore a child's version of Earth's flag. The other, a cartoon pancake with a crown. Mother says she's rewriting the peace treaty, the girl said. She's started using your sarcastic tone. Ilya raised a brow. I'll take that as a compliment. She also said. She might not vaporize your planet. Ilya raised her glass. To small miracles. A beat of silence. I heard you turned down the title, Saren said. Yeah, Ilya sighed. Grand human emissary of not getting shot felt like a bit much. So, what now? She exhaled. Watching a transport ship glide toward a pale moon. Now I stay. Help build something that's worth keeping. Translate a few idioms. Teach the council not to hold meetings at 0400. She smiled. And maybe, start a pancake shop. Saren laughed, a real laugh this time. You're weird. I get that a lot. Behind them, Kalara approached. No crown. Just a simple tunic of dark silver. Her long ears half tied back, a diplomatic bun. You've complicated everything, the queen said, without preamble. It's a gift. And yet, it is working. Kalara looked at Saren. Then at Ilya. We may still face war. Old wounds do not vanish in a fortnight. No, Ilya said. But someone's got to be first through the door. Might as well be the girl with the dumb jokes and good pancakes. Kalara studied her. Then, gave a rare, faint nod. You remain inconveniently human. Ilya smirked. And you're inconveniently starting to sound like one. Above them, the stars pulsed gently. The moon of Relis still scarred in the distance. A reminder. Not a tomb. And beneath those stars, in the heart of an empire once ruled by fear, a fragile alliance flickered into being. Flawed. Fragile. But real. The council chamber smelled like stars and dust. Ilya stood in its center, hands clasped, nerves fraying at the edges. The polished obsidian floor reflected everything but doubt. That stayed in her chest. All around her, the Arisari ministers murmured in overlapping signals. Whispers of light, scent, and vibration. They spoke without speaking. Felt more than they said. And every few moments, they looked at her. A human. A translator. A symbol. Kalara sat at the helm. Still. Focused. Her silver robe flowing like molten time. Saren stood at her side, in her tiny ceremonial tunic, clutching a stylized day top hat shaped like a pancake. Because of course. The council session was long. Treaties debated. Borders redrawn. And through it all, Ilya listened. Translated when needed. Stepped in when silence turned sharp. But mostly, she was present. Not as a soldier. Not as a pawn. As Kavari. When it was over, the chamber lights dimmed. Ministers drifted out. Leaving only the queen, the child, and the woman who had somehow become both bridge and mirror. Kalara approached slowly. No crown. No guards. Just her. You turned down the title again, she said. Ilya nodded. Didn't feel right. I don't want to rule anything. Just translate it. Help it make sense. Kalara tilted her head. You helped them see what I could not. You helped me. Sound human. Ilya smiled gently. And you helped me feel less like a translation. And more like a voice. A pause. Then, the queen asked softly. Do you know what Kavari truly means? Ilya blinked. I thought I did. Kalara stepped closer. Close enough for her voice to hum in Ilya's bones. It means the one who stays. Even when they don't have to. Silence bloomed between them. Ilya's breath caught. Not from shock. From recognition. Then I guess I am. Saren skipped over, breaking the spell. Also it means first to be invited to breakfast by royal decree. Which is tomorrow. At sunrise. Wear something soft. Ilya laughed. That's a lot of meaning packed into one word. The girl grinned. Arissary teeth. Human humor. Our language is like that. They stood together, all three of them. On the steps of a world trying to be something better. The stars glittered above. Ships moved across them like hopeful seeds. Some carried humans. Some carried Arissary. All of them carried the possibility of something new. Ilya looked up at the sky. Then at the queen. Then at the child. So, she said. Where do we begin? Kalara answered with something not quite a smile. But warmer than shadow. We begin by listening. In the end, it wasn't the technology. Not the weapons. Not even the treaties. It was one voice. One choice. One human who chose to stay. Not to conquer. But to understand. If this story touched something inside you, I'd love to hear it. What would you risk for peace? Would you stay when you didn't have to? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Every comment is a signal. A message sent out into the stars. Waiting for someone to understand it.